How's everything looking? How we doing, fellas? Everything working? Hello, Brooklyn John and Return to Dust. Welcome to the stream. I'm really glad that you're enjoying it. This is one of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors. Douglas Adams is actually a huge inspiration for me as a writer, and it's one of my favorite writing styles ever. So I'm glad everything's working now, and I will just jump right back into it. I will backtrack a little bit to where Ford says that the Hitchhiker's Guide is out of date. That's the point. It's out of date now, said Ford, sliding the book back into its cover. I'm doing the field research for the new revised edition, and one of the things I'll have to do is include a bit about how the Vogons now employ Dentrassi cooks, which gives us a rather useful little loophole. A pained expression crossed Arthur's face. But who are the Dentrassi? He said. Great guys, said Ford. They're the best cooks and the best drink mixers, and they don't give a wet slap about anything else. They'll always help hitchhikers aboard, partly because they like the company, but mostly because it annoys the Vogons, which is exactly the sort of thing you need to know if you're an impoverished hitchhiker trying to see the marvels of the universe for less than 30 Altarian dollars a day. And that's my job. Fun, isn't it? Arthur looked lost. It's amazing, he said, and frowned at one of the other mattresses. Unfortunately, I got stuck on Earth for rather longer than I intended, said Ford. I came in for a week and got stuck for 15 years. But how did you get there in the first place, then? Easy, I got a lift with a teaser. A teaser? Yeah. What is a teaser? Teasers are usually rich kids with nothing to do. They cruise around looking for places that haven't made interstellar contact yet and buzz them. Buzz them? Arthur began to feel that Ford was enjoying making life difficult for him. Yeah, said Ford. They buzz them. They find some isolated spot with very few people around, then land right by some poor unsuspecting soul whom no one's ever going to believe, and then strut up and down in front of him wearing silly antennae on their head and making beep-beep noises. Rather childish, really. Ford leaned back on the mattress with his hands behind his head and looked infuriatingly pleased with himself. Ford, insisted Arthur, I don't know if this sounds like a silly question, but what am I doing here? Well, you know that, said Ford. I rescued you from the Earth. And what's happened to the Earth? Ah, it's been demolished. Has it? Said Arthur levelly. Yes, it just boiled away into space. Look, said Arthur, I'm a bit upset about that. Ford frowned to himself and seemed to roll the thought around in his mind. Yes, I can understand that, he said at last. Understand that? Shouted Arthur. Understand that? Ford sprang up. Keep looking at the book, he said urgently. What? Don't panic. I am not panicking. Yes, you are. All right, so I'm panicking. What else is there to do? You just come along with me and have a good time. The galaxy's a fun place. You'll need to have this fish in your ear. I beg your pardon? Asked Arthur, rather politely, he thought. Ford was holding up a small glass jar which quite clearly had a small yellow fish wiggling around in it. Arthur blinked at him. He wished there was something simple and recognizable he could grasp hold of. He would have felt safe alongside the Dentrassis underwear, the piles of scorned shellless mattresses, and the man from Beetlejuice holding a small yellow fish and offering to put it in his ear had he been able to just see a small packet of cornflakes. But he couldn't, and he didn't feel safe. Suddenly, a violent noise leapt at them from no source that he could identify. He gasped in terror at what sounded like a man trying to gargle while fighting off a pack of wolves. "Shh," said Ford. "Listen, it might be important." Important? It's the Vogon captain making an announcement on the tannoy. You mean that's how the Vogons talk? Listen. But I can't speak Vogon. You don't need to. Just put this fish in your ear. Ford, with a lightning movement, clapped his hand to Arthur's ear, and he had the sudden sickening sensation of the fish slithering deep into his oral tract. Gasping with horror, he scrabbled at his ear for a second or so, but then slowly turned goggle-eyed with wonder. He was experiencing the oral equivalent of looking at a picture of two black silhouetted faces and suddenly seeing it as a picture of a white candlestick, or of looking at a lot of colored dots on a piece of paper which suddenly resolve themselves into the figure 6 and mean that your optician is going to charge you a lot of money for a new pair of glasses. He was still listening to the howling gargles. He knew that, only now it had somehow taken on the semblance of perfectly straightforward English. This is what he heard. Chapter 6. Howl, howl, gargle, howl, gargle, howl, 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 gargle, howl, gargle, howl, howl, gargle, gargle, howl, gargle, 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 howl, slurp, erg. Should have been a good time. Message repeats. This is your captain speaking, so stop whatever you're doing and pay attention. First of all, I see from our instruments that we have a couple of hitchhikers aboard. Hello, wherever you are. I just want to make it totally clear that you are not at all welcome. I worked hard to get to where I am today, and I didn't become captain of a Vogon constructor ship simply so I could turn it into a taxi service for a load of degenerate freeloaders. I have sent out a search party, and as soon as they find you, I will put you off the ship. If you're very lucky, I might read you some of my poetry first. Secondly, we are about to jump into hyperspace, and for the journey to... Barnard's star. On arrival, we will stay in dock for 22-hour refit, and no one's to leave the ship during that time. I repeat, all planet leave is cancelled. I've just had an unhappy love affair, so I don't see why anyone else should have a good time. Message ends. The noise stopped. Arthur discovered, to his embarrassment, that he was lying curled up in a small ball on the floor with his arms wrapped around his head. He smiled weakly. "Charming man," he said. "I wish I had a daughter so I could forbid her to marry one." "You wouldn't need to," said Ford. "They've got as much sex appeal as a road accident. No, don't move," he added as Arthur began to uncurl himself. "You'd better be prepared for the jump into hyperspace. It's unpleasantly like being drunk." "What's so unpleasant about being drunk?" "You ask a glass of water." Arthur thought about this. "Ford," he said. "Yeah?" "What's this fish doing in my ear?" "It's translating for you. It's a babblefish. Look it up in the book if you like." He tossed over the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and then curled himself up to a fetal ball to prepare himself for the jump. At that moment, the bottom fell out of Arthur's mind. His eyes turned inside out. His feet began to leak out the top of his head. The room folded flat around him, spun around, shifted out of existence, and left him sliding into his own navel. They were passing through hyperspace. "The Babblefish," said the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy quietly, "is small, yellow, and leech-like, and probably the oddest thing in the universe. It feeds on brainwave energy received not from its own carrier, but from those around it. It absorbs all unconscious mental frequencies from this brainwave energy to nourish itself with. It then excretes them into the mind of its carrier, a telepathic matrix formed by combining the conscious thought frequencies with nerve signals picked up from the speech centers of the brain which has supplied them. The practical upshot of all this is that if you stick a babblefish in your ear, you can instantly understand anything said to you in any form of language. The speech patterns you actually hear decode the brainwave matrix which has been fed into your mind by your babblefish. Now, it is such a bizarrely improbable coincidence that anything so mind-bogglingly useful could have evolved purely by chance that some thinkers have chosen to see it as a final and clinching proof of the non-existence of God. The argument goes something like this. I refuse to prove that I exist, says God, for proof denies faith, and without faith I am nothing. But, says man, the babblefish is a dead giveaway, isn't it? It could not have evolved by chance. It proves you exist, and so therefore by your own arguments you don't. QED. Oh dear, says God, I hadn't thought of that, and promptly vanishes in a puff of logic. Oh, that was easy, says man, and for an encore goes to prove that black is white and gets himself killed in the next zebra crossing. Most leading theologians claim that this argument is a load of dingo's kidneys, but that didn't stop Ulan Kolufid from making a small fortune when he used it as the central theme of his best-selling book. Well, that about wraps it up for God. Meanwhile, the poor babblefish, by effectively removing all barriers to communication between different races and cultures, has caused more and bloodier wars than anything else in the history of creation. Arthur let out a low groan. He was horrified to discover that the kick through hyperspace had not killed him. He was now 6 light years from the place that Earth would have been if it still existed. The Earth. Visions of it swam sickeningly through his nauseated mind. There was no way his imagination could feel the impact of the whole Earth having gone. It was too big. He prodded his feelings by thinking that his parents and sister had gone. No reaction. He thought of all the people he had been close to. No reaction. Then he thought of a complete stranger he had been standing behind in the queue at the supermarket 2 days before and felt a sudden stab. The supermarket was gone. Everyone in it was gone. Nelson's column had gone. Nelson's column had gone, and there would be no outcry because there was no one left to make an outcry. From now on, Nelson's column only existed in his mind. England only existed in his mind. His mind, stuck here in this dank, smelly, steel-lined spaceship. A wave of claustrophobia closed in on him. England no longer existed. He'd got that. Somehow he'd got it. He tried again. America, he thought, has gone. He couldn't grasp it. He decided to start smaller again. New York has gone. No reaction. He'd never seriously believed it existed anyway. The dollar, he thought, has sunk forever. Slight tremor there. Every Bogart movie has been wiped, he said to himself, and that gave him a nasty knock. McDonald's, he thought. There is no longer any such thing as a McDonald's hamburger. He passed out. When he came round a second later, he found he was sobbing for his mother. He jerked himself violently to his feet. Ford! Ford looked up from where he was sitting in a corner, humming to himself. He always found the actual traveling through space part of space travel rather trying. Yeah? He said. If you're a researcher on this book thing and you were on Earth, you must have been gathering material on it. Well, I was able to extend the original entry a bit, yes. Let me see what it says in this edition then. I've got to see it. Yeah, okay. He passed it over again. Arthur grabbed hold of it and tried to stop his hands shaking. He pressed the entry for the relevant page. The screen flashed and swirled and resolved onto a page of print. Arthur stared at it. "It doesn't have an entry," he burst out. Ford looked over his shoulder. "Yes, it does," he said. "Down there, see at the bottom of the screen, just above the Eccentrica Gallum-Bits. The triple-breasted whore of Eroticon 6. Arthur followed Ford's finger and saw where it was pointing. For a moment, it didn't register. Then his mind nearly blew up. "What? Harmless? Is that all it's got to say? Harmless? One word?" Ford shrugged. "Well, there are 100 billion stars in the galaxy and only a limited amount of space in the book's microprocessors," he said, "and no one knew much about the Earth, of course." "Well, for God's sake, I hope you managed to rectify that a bit." "Oh, yes, well, I managed to transmit a new entry off to the editor. He had to trim it a bit, but it's still an improvement." "And what does it say now?" asked Arthur. "Mostly harmless," admitted Ford with a slight embarrassed cough. "Mostly harmless?" shouted Arthur. "What was that noise?" hissed Ford. "It was me shouting!" shouted Arthur. "No, shut up," said Ford. "I think we're in trouble." "You think we're in trouble?" Outside the door were the clear sounds of marching footsteps. "Oh, the Dentrasis?" whispered Arthur. "No, those are steel-tipped boots," said Ford. There was a sharp, ringing tap on the door. "Then who is it?" said Arthur. "Well," said Ford, "if we're lucky, it's just the Vogons come to throw us into space." "And if we're unlucky?" "If we're unlucky," said Ford grimly, "the captain might be serious in his threat that he's going to read us some of his poetry first." Oh, you like my hand gestures? It puts me in the, the headspace. I don't really typically realize that I'm doing it until I lose my spot on my page. Chapter 7. Vogon poetry is, of course, the third worst in the universe. The second worst is that of the Asgoths of Krea. During a recitation by their poet-master Grunthus, the flatulent, of his poem Ode to a Small Lump of Green Putty I Found in My Armpit One Midsummer Morning, 4 of his audience died of internal hemorrhaging, and the president of the Mid-Galactic Arts Nobbling Council survived by gnawing one of his own legs off. Grunthos is reported to have been disappointed by the poem's reception and was about to embark on a reading of his 12-book epic entitled My Favorite Bath Time Gurgles, when his own major intestine, in a desperate attempt to save life and civilization, leapt straight up through his neck and throttled his brain. The very worst poetry of all perished along with its creator, Paula Nancy Millstone Jennings of Greenbridge, Essex, England, in the destruction of the planet Earth. Prostentic Vogon Jeltz smiled very slowly. This was done not so much for effect as because he was trying to remember the sequence of muscle movements. He had had a terribly therapeutic yell at his prisoners and was now feeling quite relaxed and ready for a little callousness. The prisoners sat in poetry appreciation chairs, strapped in. Vogon suffered no illusions as to the regard their works were generally held in. Their early attempts at composition had been part of a bludgeoning insistence that they be accepted as properly evolved and cultured race. But now the only thing that kept them going was sheer bloody-mindedness. The sweat stood out cold on Ford Prefect's brow and slid round the electrode strapped to his temple. These were attached to a battery of electronic equipment, imagery intensifiers, rhythmic modulators, alliterative residulators, and simile dumpers, all designed to heighten the experience of the poem and make sure that not a single nuance of the poet's thought was lost. Arthur Dent sat and quivered. He had no idea what he was in for, but he knew that he hadn't liked anything that had happened so far, and didn't think things were likely to change. The guard grasped them both firmly round the neck and, bowing deferentially toward his captain's back, hoiked them both, protesting, out of the bridge. A steel door closed, and the captain was on his own again. He hummed quietly and mused to himself, lightly fingering his notebook of verses. He said. Counterpoint the surrealism of the underlying metaphor. He considered this for a moment and then closed the book with a grim smile. Death's too good for them, he said. The long steel-lined corridor echoed to the feeble struggles of the two humanoids clamped firmly under rubbery Vogon armpits. This is great, spluttered Arthur. This is really terrific. Let go of me, you brute! The Vogon guard dragged them on. Don't you worry, said Ford. I'll think of something. He didn't sound hopeful. Resistance is useless, bellowed the guard. Just don't say things like that, stammered Ford. How can anyone maintain a positive mental attitude if you're saying things like that? My God, complained Arthur. You're talking about a positive mental attitude and you haven't even had your planet demolished today. I woke up this morning and thought I'd have a nice, relaxed day, do a bit of reading, brush the dog. It's now just after 4 in the afternoon and I'm already being thrown out of an alien spaceship 6 light years from the smoking remains of the Earth. He spluttered and gurgled as the Vogon tightened his grip. All right, said Ford. Just stop panicking. Who said anything about panicking? Snapped Arthur. This is still just a culture shock. You wait till I've settled down into the situation and found my bearings. Then I'll start panicking. Arthur, you're getting hysterical. Shut up. Ford tried desperately to think, but he was interrupted by the guard shouting again. Resistance is useless. And you can shut up as well, snapped Ford. Resistance is useless. Give it a rest, said Ford. He twisted his head till he was looking straight up into his captor's face. A thought struck him. Do you really enjoy this sort of thing? He asked suddenly. The Vogon stopped dead, and a look of immense stupidity seeped slowly over his face. Enjoy? He boomed. What do you mean? What I mean, said Ford, is, does it give you a full, satisfying life? Stomping around, shouting, pushing people out of spaceships. The Vogon stared up at the low ceiling, and his eyebrows almost rolled over each other. His mouth slacked. Finally, he said, Well, the hours are good. They'd have to be, agreed Ford. Arthur twisted his head round to look at Ford. Ford, what are you doing? He asked in an amazed whisper. Oh, just trying to take an interest in the world around me, okay? He said. So, the hours are pretty good then? He resumed. The Vogon stared down at him as sluggish thoughts moiled around in the murky depths. Yeah, he said, but now you come to mention it, most of the actual minutes are pretty lousy. Except, he thought again, which required looking at the ceiling. Except some of the shouting I quite like. He filled his lungs and bellowed. Resistance is... Sure, yes, interrupted Ford hurriedly. You're good at that, I can tell. But if it's mostly lousy, he said, slowly giving the words time to reach their mark, then why do you do it? What is it? The girls, the leather, the machismo, or do you just find that coming to terms with the mindless tedium of it all presents an interesting challenge? Arthur looked backward and forward between them in bafflement. Said the guard. I don't know. I think I just sort of do it, really. My aunt said that spaceship guard was a good career for a young Vogon. You know, the uniform, the low-slung stun ray holster, the mindless tedium. There you are, Arthur, said Ford with the air of someone reaching the conclusion of his argument. You think you've got problems. Arthur rather thought he had. Apart from the unpleasant business with his home planet, the Vogon guard had half-throttled him already, and he didn't like the sound of being thrown into space very much. Try and understand his problems, insisted Ford. Here he is, poor lad, his entire life's work is stamping around and throwing people off spaceships. And shouting, added the guard. And shouting, sure, said Ford, patting the blubbery arm clamped round his neck in friendly condescension. And he doesn't even know why he's doing it. Arthur agreed that this was very sad. He did this with a small, feeble gesture because he was too asphyxiated to speak. Deep rumblings of bemusement came from the guard. Well, now you put it like that, I suppose. Good lad, encouraged Ford. But all right, went on the rumblings. So what's the alternative? Well, said Ford, brightly but slowly, stop doing it, of course. Tell them, he went on, you're not going to do it anymore. He felt he ought to add something to that, but for the moment the guard seemed to have his mind occupied pondering that much. Said the guard. Well, that doesn't sound that great to me. Ford suddenly felt the moment slipping away. Now, wait a minute, he said. That's just the start, you see. There's more to it than that, you see. But at that moment, the guard renewed his grip and continued his original purpose of lugging his prisoners to the airlock. He was obviously quite touched. No, I think if it's all the same to you, he said, I'd better get you both shoved into this airlock and then go and get on with some other bits of shouting I've got to do. It wasn't all the same to Ford Prefect at all. Come on now, but look, he said, less slowly, less brightly. Said Arthur without any clear inflection. But hang on, pursued Ford. There's music and art and things to tell you about yet. Resistance is useless, bellowed the guard, and then added, you see, if I keep it up, I can eventually get promoted to senior shouting officer, and there aren't usually many vacancies for non-shouting and non-pushing people about officers, so I think I'd better stick to what I know. They had now reached the airlock, a large circular steel hatchway of massive strength and weight, let into the inner skin of the craft. The guard operated a control and the hatchway swung smoothly open. But thanks for taking an interest, said the Vogon guard. Bye now. He flung Ford and Arthur through the hatchway into the small chamber within. Arthur lay panting for breath. Ford scrambled round and flung his shoulder uselessly against the reclosing hatchway. But listen, he shouted to the guard. There's a whole world you don't know anything about. Here, how about this? Desperately, he grabbed for the only bit of culture he knew offhand and hummed the first bar of Beethoven's Fifth. Da-da-da-dum! Doesn't that stir anything in you? No, said the guard. Not really, but I'll mention it to my aunt. If he said anything further after that, it was lost. The hatchway sealed itself tight and all sound was lost except the faint, distant hum of the ship's engines. Will I continue streaming after reading? I can. I could do that for a little bit. They were in a brightly polished cylindrical chamber about 6 feet in diameter and 10 feet long. Ford looked round it, panting. Potentially bright lad, I thought, he said, and slumped against the curved wall. Arthur was still laying in the curve of the floor where he had fallen. He didn't look up. He just lay, panting. We're trapped now, aren't we? Yes, said Ford. We're trapped. Well, didn't you think of anything? I thought you said you were going to think of something. Perhaps you thought of something and I didn't notice. Oh yes, I thought of something, panted Ford. Arthur looked up expectantly. But unfortunately, continued Ford, it rather involved being on the other side of this airtight hatchway. He kicked the hatch they'd just been thrown through. But it was a good idea, was it? Oh yes, very neat. Well, what was it? Well, I hadn't worked out the details yet. Not much point now, is there? So, what happens next? Asked Arthur. Well, the hatchway in front of us will open automatically in a few moments, and we will shoot out into deep space, I expect, and asphyxiate. If you take a lungful of air with you, you can last for up to 30 seconds, of course, said Ford. He stuck his hands behind his back, raised his eyebrows, and started to hum an old Beetlejuicean battle hymn. To Arthur's eyes, he suddenly looked very alien. So, this is it, said Arthur. We're going to die. Yes, said Ford. Except, no, wait a minute. He suddenly lunged across the chamber at something behind Arthur's line of vision. What's this switch? He cried. What? Where? Cried Arthur, twisting round. No, I was only fooling, said Ford. We are going to die after all. He slumped against the wall again and carried on the tune from where he left off. You know, said Arthur, it's at times like this, when I'm trapped in a Vogon airlock with a man from Beetlejuice and about to die of asphyxiation in deep space, that I really wish I'd listened to what my mother told me when I was young. Why? What did she tell you? Oh, I don't know. I didn't listen. Oh. Ford carried on humming. This is terrific, Arthur thought to himself. Nelson's column has gone, McDonald's has gone, all that's left is me and the words mostly harmless. Any second now, all that will be left is mostly harmless. And yesterday the planet seemed to be going so well. A motor whirred. A slight hiss built into a deafening roar of rushing air as the outer hatchway opened into an empty blackness, studded with tiny, impossibly bright points of light. Ford and Arthur popped into outer space like corks from a toy gun. And that is all. The conclusion of Chapter 7 today of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I managed to not lose my voice too much. For some reason, this t-shirt feels very tight today. Like it's choking me. So a lot of what I'm planning on doing as far as my stream is concerned, which I know I've talked about a little bit in the Discord, but I'll talk about a little bit here on stream as well, is to kind of do a few things. I'd like to start a book club. And thank you, Barretter, for sticking around. I'm really glad you enjoyed the reading. Don't joke. I will try. I'm trying to build up my voice a little bit so that I can read for longer periods of time. I used to, when I was in theater, I could go for a really long time and be fine. Now I've got about maybe like an hour to 2 hours of continuous speaking or reading before my voice just totally gives and like totally craps out. So I'm working my way into it and starting to build it up a little bit. But a few things I would like to do, and I'll post my stream schedule for next week, is start a book club, kind of an online book club, and then maybe once a month have a meeting where basically I stream and we talk about the book. But more than that, I would just like to be reading on stream a lot. I did update my Patreon, and I now have a coffee where you can buy me a coffee, basically. So I'm getting all of that sorted out, getting everything updated, and I would like to really start working on my books. And at that point, once I have, once I have enough written, then I would probably read my books to the stream. Reminds you of your time in choir where you sang for 4 hours? Yeah, basically. I mean, I used to do musical theater at the community college, and so my voice was virtually indestructible. And I remember being, when I did community theater, I was the only one during the first like 2 or 3 weeks who did not lose their voice during practice, because I was the only one who did the vocal warm-ups. I was the only one who like took care of my voice, so I avoided like too much citrus or acid, which I do eat a lot of spicy food now, so that's probably part of the reason that my voice doesn't last as long. But I did some vocal warm-ups today, so my voice I feel like it's kind of holding a little bit better, if that makes sense. But yeah. Lots of cool stuff in the works. I'm also thinking maybe once a month I'll do a Minecraft stream instead of once a week, so that I can focus more, like have more of a focal point on reading. Oh, you were in the bass. Nice. My music director always put me with the sopranos, and I don't know why. You can tell by listening to my voice I am not a soprano. And I'm really only barely an alto. I still can't hit all of the high notes for alto. I'm actually fit better with the tenors, but they never would put me with the tenors because they only wanted the boys there. But I don't know why she would never put me with the altos. Hello, Stygian. How are you? How goes life for you, my dear? Was talking about how my voice does not last as long as it used to. Well, Barretter, maybe you could join. I mean, you don't have to buy your way in. You just read a book. So maybe reading would help improve your English. Your English on my channel has been fantastic. You should join the Discord, because you've been on a few streams and you seem to get along with the fellas that hang out and chat. You just chilling? I am doing well, thank you. We just finished reading chapter 7 of Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Tomorrow, I will be hosting a movie. Oh, you're in Discord. You joined. Fantastic. That's awesome. So tomorrow we'll be watching Scott Pilgrim versus the World in the on Rabbit. So not. Why do you need to turn this toward me a little more? So not here, but on my Rabbit room. Playing Wildlands? Wildlands? I have never heard of that. What is that? Tell me about it. Oh, if you go to the Roll Assign channel, Stygian. Let's see. So, if you're on mobile, it probably looks a little bit like this. If you go to Roll Assignment, there's this post here, and you just click on one of the emotes in there, one of the emotes in that post. Oh, Ghost Recon. Is that the Tom Clancy game that just came out? I think Loftmore's been playing that a little bit. Or it's in beta or something. You did that and you still don't have a role? Let's see. Let me see if I can find you in here, Barretter. You clicked on Twitch streamer. Well, it should show you as fellow Twitcheteers in that case. So let me go back to the welcome channel. Interesting. Well, let me see. I can probably fix it. Manage. Fellow Twitcheteers. Okay, so I went ahead and assigned the role to you. It came out a while ago. You just got it recently? Tell me if it works, Barretter. Make sure everything works okay. How many bits to see my feet? Considering I'm sitting here barefoot, I'll say 10,000. 10,000 bits. You have the roll now? Okay, awesome. Fantastic. Fantastico. So I'll probably start putting in like channels and stuff for the book club. The book club stuff. Maybe picking a book. Haven't really given much thought to what we're gonna do yet, and I would want to talk to some other folks and see who else is interested. Yeah, well, my feet aren't just for anyone. You gotta cough it up if you want to see them. I'm stingy. Oh no, I'm so sorry, Nibbler. Are you sick again? I thought you just went and got medicine. I've seen you've been messaging me, but I haven't looked at your messages. Yeah, I haven't read them. I'm looking at them now. I'm sorry. Ugh. Yuck. Oh, by the way, James, I updated my Patreon. If you wanted to look at it, I don't expect you to pledge, but he's not donating. I think he left. I'm pretty sure he left, Barretter. Yep. He said, F that noise. And I got a coffee, like you recommended. A bit is a penny, so it's $100. 10,000 bits is $100. Just a bug. Ugh. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you don't feel good. That's the worst. I have this like one little strand of hair that doesn't want to go anywhere. It just kind of wants to be in the middle of my face like this, and it's kind of driving me crazy. Yeah, 1,000 bits, it's $10. 1,000 is $10. So 10,000 is $100. So a bit basically is a penny. 1 bit equals 1 penny. So every 100 bits is $1. But yeah, no, Barretter, I'm not here to I'm not like a fetish blog or stream or whatever. If I was, then it'd be less expensive, but he's asking me to go outside of my purview. Probably for perverted reasons, so. Oh, you've got a deal for him? $100 for infinite coffee. So there's 2 different services. It's coffee. It's like KO-FI, and I actually need to update my links. Which I've always heard of, but I'd never gotten one until James Nibbler actually reminded me that it exists, and I thought I should probably set that up. And then I got my Patreon updated since I haven't been really keeping up with the gaming videos. I just updated it to be basically a place for support instead of like tit for tat kind of trading thing. And more like book themed. So I'll probably update my Facebook page in the next couple of days here as well. But yeah, one of the things I need to do today is work on my editing project for the publishing company. Yeah, no, it really can. And especially the way that I was doing it, I was trying to do it kind of full time. And just doing that on top of babysitting, on top of working for an editing company was just too much. So that's why I kind of cut back my days and my hours. Even Saturdays, which used to be a big streaming day for me, I realized like I had no weekend time. And a lot of times I'm babysitting on Friday nights, on Saturday nights, which I am doing today. So like if I were to stream from, 11 to like 3 or 4 o'clock and then immediately go to watch kids, I feel like I have no weekend and no days off. So I am feeling a lot better now that I've cut back. My face was great. Well, thank you. Infinite coffee. Yeah, infinite coffee is the magic word. I do love my coffee. I didn't have very much today. Patreon's pretty cool. I don't like that they take money from you, but I guess it makes sense since they're providing you like a platform. Be coffee club. Books and coffee. This is like two of my favorite things. That I enjoy immensely. Oh, my legs. Like Twitch. I don't think Twitch takes your money. Now PayPal does. PayPal takes a small percentage of whatever people donate to you. Twitch, it depends on how you're donating. Like I don't think it takes money if you get bits, but it does take like sub money. So like you pay $5 for a sub and then I get half of that. So I get half of whatever you're paying for your sub. So if you're on like the tier 2, which is like $10 I think, then I get $5 for it. And so on. And yes, coffee is the best invention since humanity. I am 100% with you on that, Bearder. Love my coffee. Love it. But yes, I updated some of my goals. Once I've hit a certain point, I think if it's a direct payment, they still take like 3% or something. I'm not sure though, and I don't know. I know like with the Streamlabs, it's considered like a payment, so they're taking tax out basically. However you want to do it, Barretter, and I appreciate all of it, honestly. Any part of it. Having subscribers, I don't know really what the benefit is other than monetary for me. I know like for you guys, you get like the emotes, like these things. These guys are my custom emotes, so if you are a subscriber, you get those. But like subs versus donations, it doesn't make a huge difference for me. PayPal is very greedy. They've always had issues. They've never been my favorite thing. I actually prefer Venmo because they don't take anything unless you pay with like a credit card, in which case they take like whatever their fee is for the credit card. Well, thank you, Beritor. I appreciate that. I really do. Oh. But yeah, kind of leaning in the new direction, going toward what I want to do. Yeah, debit cards. Venmo does not charge for you to use a debit card. Kiara! Well, hello, my dear. Good to see you for a moment. Yeah, and PayPal is pretty secure. I've never had anything stolen through PayPal. I've never lost money through PayPal. That type of thing. I am good. How are you? I'm doing well. Just finished reading a little bit. I think you just have to search me, and I think it's just at Evadell. If you wanted to look at it. Mine, it's just an app I have on my phone. And I got it because the girls at work, way back when, were, like, we were all buying lunch and stuff for each other. And so we all downloaded this app and we could send money to each other. But yeah, it doesn't exactly bother me that PayPal takes money. I think they take more than they probably need to. Especially with how big of a service they are. They could probably get away with a little bit less, but I know that feeling, Kiara. Well, good. I'm glad you're doing well. Yeah. 1% plus 30 cents. Yeah. I feel like it's more. I feel like the donations I've gotten have had a pretty good chunk pulled out of them. I'm just reading a little bit now. You guys can chit chat. I'll respond. I'm still looking. $100 equals. No, so 1% of 100 would be $1. $1 plus 30 cents, so $1.30. But I feel like $1.30 is maybe the minimum. I don't know if Streamlabs takes a cut. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kiara. I started using like a cheap shampoo and conditioner and realized that it was like frying my hair. So I went a few days without washing it, which I know sounds gross, but I wanted it to get some of its like natural oils back, which is why it's been up for so long. And then I washed it with like a deep cleansing shampoo and then did a deep conditioning treatment because I didn't want it to fry, so it's starting to come back to its natural state. It's still a little bit frizzy in some places, but I think that's more from the weather than from me trying to wreck it. I thought I could use like $1 shampoo and conditioner, and I cannot. They do have a lot of ads. I don't know why. I thought it was always just like one at the beginning. I didn't realize that they played like intermittently through the stream. That's super annoying. Your hair is sensitive too? Yeah. It's very coarse. Like the strands themselves, the hairs themselves are like kind of thick and they're not smooth. They're kind of I don't know how to describe it. Just coarse, like a horse's hair almost. Not quite that coarse, but kind of like that. It can be smooth and shiny if I take really good care of it, but I thought maybe I can use the cheap stuff. And I was wrong. I was so wrong. So now I know better. Refuse to pay your ad blocker for mobile. Oh, yeah. Ugh. Alright, Kiara, have fun at your second job. Take care of yourself. It doesn't matter because he doesn't have Twitch Prime. That's what gets rid of the ads. You want to drink some whiskey, but you're too lazy to get up and get it? I have some. You can have some of mine. My face is like really shiny for some reason. It doesn't look like that in here. Like in the mirror in here, but it does in the webcam for some reason. Oh, weird. Huh. I just know, like, I have Twitch Prime, so I don't get ads anywhere. Right? I think you're right, Barretter. That is definitely proof enough that you're not an alcoholic. Alright, y'all. Well, I'm probably gonna roll as well. Oh, yeah. We're not gonna say your name out loud, demon. If you're a troll, just leave right now, because I'm about to ban you in like 5 seconds, unless you can show me that you're not. Same thing with you, Casanova. Strangers who come in here and call me babe immediately, you've got about 5 seconds to show me you're not going to come in here and troll or be disgusting. Twitch is what, you? Nibbler? Yep, alright, here we go. Oh, got it, backwards. It took me a minute to understand what I was looking at. Yeah, Twitch doesn't love you, I guess. Well, have a good day, Stygian. Thanks for stopping by. It's always good to see you. And sorry about the weird trolls that popped in here at the last minute. I really hate people like that. I find it very immature and annoying. I know, like, my 14-year-old brother thinks it's hilarious, but I don't know anyone who's an actual adult who thinks it's funny. Alright, but for real, I'm gonna roll. I've got a little bit of work to do today before I go to work. Kinda like Kiara. But have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Barreter, for listening to my reading. I will upload the video to YouTube, so if you guys want to hear the book itself, you can do that at any time. It's super easy to access. If you haven't joined the Discord, which I know Barreter just did, so anyone else who's lurking and wants to check out, join the Discord, and I'll get up my my stream schedule for next week, which is going to be a little bit different. So we're changing a little bit. So have a good night, guys. I love you all. Take care, and I will see you soon.